Imagine this. In the final, desperate days of a truly devastating war, an entire navy is given one single gut-wrenching order: destroy yourselves. Today we're diving into the story of Vapor Cué, a final, defiant act where sailors chose fire and ruin over the shame of surrender.
So, let's set the scene. The year is 1869. For 5 brutal years, the War of the Triple Alliance has absolutely torn Paraguay apart. The end is near, you can feel it. The nation has been ravaged, its population decimated, and what's left of its army is broken, caught in this desperate, chaotic retreat deep into the heartland.
You know, to really understand the impossible decision that was made at a place called Vapor Cué, we have to try and see the war through the eyes of the people who were living through its final, agonizing days.
The situation was, it was catastrophic. The combined forces of Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay were just relentlessly pushing deeper and deeper into Paraguay. For the soldiers and civilians still standing, national survival had pretty much become a daily battle for personal survival.
But in the middle of all this collapse, Paraguay was clinging to one last significant strategic asset: a small, cornered fleet hiding out in the winding, protective waters of the Yhaguy River.
These 7 ships, that was it. That was the last of the Paraguayan Navy. Now, this wasn't some powerful battle group built for major naval combat. No way. In fact, after the disastrous Battle of Riachuelo years earlier, their role had completely changed. They'd become something just as vital: a lifeline.
And here's the thing you gotta understand. Most of these vessels weren't purpose-built warships, they were humble merchant steamers that had been pressed into military service. Their job wasn't to fight enemy ironclads anymore, but to be the logistical backbone for the last pockets of the army. Transporting troops, ferrying supplies, carrying messages.
So as the Brazilian forces closed in, effectively trapping this little flotilla, Paraguay's leader, Marshal Francisco Solano Lopez, was faced with an impossible choice about the fate of these vital ships. And the timeline was closing in fast. By the middle of August, the Brazilian army had reached Caraguatay and was just overwhelming the local defenses. The fleet, now stuck in a shallow bend of the river, had absolutely nowhere left to run. A decision had to be made, and it had to be made right then. So Marshal Lopez's final command, it wasn't an act of surrender. Not at all. It was a calculated act of strategic denial. The order was crystal clear. Under no circumstances could these ships be captured and then turned against the very people they were sworn to protect.
And that brings us to August 18th, 1869, the day the sailors of the Paraguayan fleet prepared to carry out their final, absolutely gut-wrenching order. This was the moment that would become known as the Gesta, the heroic deed of Vapor Cué.
On this day, with the smoke from the advancing enemy lines filling the air, the sailors of the Yhaguy flotilla received their final command. There wasn't going to be a battle. There wasn't going to be a final charge. There was only a final duty.
In what has to be one of the ultimate acts of resistance, they turned their own ships into funeral pyres. They gathered up flammable materials, spread them across the wooden decks, and they lit the flames. They watched as their ships, their homes, their last connection to the war effort were just consumed by fire, making sure the enemy would capture nothing but smoking skeletal remains.
Can you just imagine the human toll of that moment? For these sailors, this wasn't just about destroying military hardware. This was sacrificing their last strategic resource. It was an act of extreme loyalty that really marked the definitive end of their nation's naval power.
So what was the real consequence of this dramatic act? Was it some kind of turning point in the war? Well, let's break down its legacy.
From a military standpoint, the sacrifice changed very little. The war's outcome was pretty much already decided. But symbolically, its weight was immeasurable. This single act of defiance became a core part of Paraguay's national story, a symbol of resistance against impossible odds. But that symbolism came at a steep price. The very ships that could have helped rebuild the shattered nation were now gone.
And the site itself was never forgotten. For more than 100 years, the skeletal remains of those ships just rested in the riverbed, a silent testament to that day. Then, in the 1980s, there was this major effort to recover the wrecks, transforming a place of destruction into the Vapor Cué National Park, a place of national memory.
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The burning of the fleet holds such a powerful place in Paraguay's history, not because it won a battle, but because of the spirit with which a devastating loss was met. It was the final, defiant act of naval resistance.
This whole story leaves us with a pretty profound question. The story of Vapor Cué is a reminder that history isn't just a record of what was lost, but it's a testament to the meaning we forged from that loss. It's in these stories of sacrifice that a nation can define its spirit and find the strength to move forward. Thank you for joining this explainer.